Genshin Impact is about to change forever, and I don't think anyone is ready for it. We just got the exciting preview for Sumeru, and with Dendro comes a plethora of new elemental reactions and artifact sets. It's impossible to fully prepare for what's to come, but today I'd like to spend a little bit of time doing an analysis on one of the new artifact sets, Gilded Dreams. I know a lot of people are completely confused about everything related to the new mechanics and artifact sets, so hopefully after today, I can clear up the air a little bit and make one aspect of the new content more digestible. As always with pre-release analysis, you can take some of this info with a grain of salt, consider it general conclusions, and not set in stone. Anyways, you guys know the drill, let's get this guide rolling. Before we get into theory crafting and brainstorming for certain characters, let's talk about the effects of the 4-set Gilded Dreams first. In a nutshell, the 4-set effect increases the holder's attack by 14% for every teammate that's the same element as the holder of the set, and increases the holder's EM by 50 for every teammate that's not the same element as the holder. These buffs only occur after the holder triggers an elemental reaction, and the buffs last for 8 seconds. From that information, there's 3 big takeaways to consider when thinking about who to use it on. First, the set is heavy on elemental mastery. Second, it's dependent on your team setup. And third, the set is very conditional. Any character that's okay with these 3 caveats of the Gilded Dream set will most likely be our main targets to farm for. The first point is easy. Think common sense. If your character does not directly scale off elemental mastery or does not constantly abuse reactions for damage, you might want to think twice about using Gilded Dreams. Of course, in practice, this is more complicated, but that's where the next 2 takeaways come into play. The second takeaway about being dependent on team composition ties into the first point. Let's take Xingqiu for example, not that Gilded Dreams is necessarily good on him. In a team like the national team, we can set up huge vaporize reactions with Xiangling for Xingqiu's elemental skill, or even get more value out of 200 plus elemental mastery with Electrocharge if you're running the Raiden national variant. On the other hand, with Yoimiya's Vaporize team, Xingqiu is hardly getting any reactions and serves as a setup for Yoimiya rather than taking the Vaporize reactions for himself. In this situation, 200 plus EM from using the 4-set Gilded Dreams set is useless. The last takeaway is the conditionality of the set. Ask yourself whether or not the benefits of the conditionality outweigh the consistency or power of other alternatives. Taking Xingqiu for example, again, we know that he has a very powerful and very consistent option with the 4-set Emblem of Severed Fate. Not only does this set make him easier to build, but it complements his supportive playstyle of setting up reactions extremely well with his elemental burst. It's an easy no-brainer that although Gilded Dreams is technically half functional on Xingqiu, he already has a much better set. With the basic knowledge about the 4-set Gilded Dreams out of the way, let's take these 3 conditions and start analyzing a handful of characters to find who the best characters are for this set and the characters you probably want to avoid farming for. Let's start with the talk of the town first. One of the characters that gets the most rep for being able to use the 4-set Gilded Dreams is Fischl. Starting with the first condition, the answer is yes. Nothing in her kit scales with elemental mastery, but her kit lends itself to have extremely strong electro application, and thus she has no issues utilizing the elemental mastery. The second condition is also a yes. Almost every team imaginable for Fischl is EM dependent, whether it be a pure Electrocharge team or a Vape Load team. In the case of Mono Electro, you might think EM is useless, but in a double Electro setup with Dendro and Anemo, I'd reckon that Elemental Mastery doesn't completely lose value anymore due to our new Dendro Electro reaction Quicken and its Electro derivative Aggravate. The only case where Gilded Dreams loses most of its value is in Superconduct teams, where Fischl supports a character like Eula, so keep that in mind. The third condition is yes as well. All of Fischl's other options right now are pretty much 2-set combinations. Given that she can proc the 4-set condition pretty consistently, why not go for the full 4-set? It gives a little more stat value than any combination that she's previously run, whether it involved the 2-set Wanderer's Troop, 2-set Thundering Fury, or any 2-set attack like Gladiator or Shimenawa's Reminiscence. Overall, the verdict for Fischl is yes, she is definitely one of the characters that can get some value out of the 4-set Gilded Dream set. The only thing I want to mention before we move on is snapshotting. Remember that Fischl snapshots buffs onto Oz, so if you trigger the reaction to activate the Gilded Dream set with your skill, you need to reposition Oz once to give him the extra stats from the 4-set effect. Think about repositioning Oz as updating his stats to include our new stat increases. Yae Miko is in a very similar situation to Fischl. The answer to the first condition is a definite yes. Yae Miko is great for triggering reactions with constant uptime on her elemental skill like Fischl. Unlike Fischl, however, she also does have elemental mastery scaling on her turret damage. Getting elemental mastery through the set bonus while focusing on attack, electro damage bonus, and crit and artifact stats is a great way to approach building Yae. Miss Miko also agrees with the second condition. In electro charge teams, EM is always welcomed. In her mono electro teams, attack percent is important for raw damage, and the EM never completely goes to waste because of her elemental mastery scaling on her turrets. Nothing else really needs to be said. The third condition is yes, with the same reasoning as Fischl. Right now, Yae suffers from not having a signature artifact set, so most players are resorting to running double attack percent 2 sets or the 2-set Thundering Fury with 1 attack percent 2 set. Although Gilded Dreams is more EM focused, as I mentioned before, that's not much of a problem as long as you focus on crit and attack percent in substats. Having more stat value is always something to consider, and that's why I think the verdict for Yae Miko is unequivocally yes to using this set. You don't even have to worry about snapshotting problems like you do with Oz, since Yae's turrets are dynamic when it comes to damage calculations. Hu Tao is an interesting nut to crack. She has some pretty solid options already, so I never thought I'd be considering Gilded Dreams for her, but here we are. Regarding the first condition, this is a yes in most cases. EM is great on Hu Tao, but you do want to balance her HP and elemental mastery. With that in mind, if you're running a crit polearm like Staff of Homa or Deathmatch, the Gilded Dreams set is definitely usable, just make sure that you're using an HP Sands instead of an EM Sand. With Gilded Dreams, anything over 300 to 350 EM ends up being overkill and takes way too much HP away from your overall build. For the second condition, just like Yae Miko, the answer is unequivocally yes. Hu Tao is realistically only used with vaporized teams due to how powerful and how comfortable they are with her playstyle. You can try other stuff, but 99% of Hu Tao players will always be playing Vaporize. And for the third condition, this too is unequivocally yes. With animation cancels and no internal cooldowns on her charge attack, Hu Tao is a monster at triggering Vaporize reactions and has no problems with the condition of the 4-set Gilded Dreams. This of course leads us to the verdict with Hu Tao, which is yes, this is a set you should always consider. I might even want to add that this set can be competitive with her best option, 4-set Crimson Witch of Flames. I myself haven't done the math for Hu Tao, but according to other theory crafting communities, the preliminary math supports this, so I'll at least mention it. Of course, even if these calculations are done by trustworthy people, these are pre-release calculations, so as always, take them with a grain of salt. As we near the end of the video, let's quickly touch upon some options that don't fit the bill quite as much for various reasons. The first batch of characters that don't really vibe with the 4-set Gilded Dreams are Yoimiya, Ayato, and Child. Although theoretically they can use the 4-set effect due to vaporized reactions, I think these characters are much more worried about raw damage from their elemental attacks as opposed to elemental reactions due to their internal cooldowns. When it comes to the condition about consistency versus conditional, Gilded Dreams just isn't good enough to outweigh their consistent options. For Yoimiya, Crimson Witch and Shimenawas are easy picks, while for Child and Ayato, Heart of Depth has a condition that isn't even really a condition at all when looking at their playstyles. Next, let's talk about Beidou and Xiangling with the 4-set Gilded Dreams. Yes, these characters can utilize EM quite well, and yes, their team comps also complement building EM, but both of these characters share the same issue when it comes to the third condition. The third condition that I listed questions whether the benefits of the conditionality outweigh the consistency or power of other alternatives from a general standpoint. And unfortunately, the answer to this question is not quite for these two. Both of these characters suffer from ridiculous energy problems, and the 4-set ESF is simply too valuable because not only does it help their energy problem, but it also heavily buffs their damage, which is mostly vested within their elemental bursts. Because of this, the verdict for Beidou and Xiangling is generally to avoid the Gilded Dream set, even if you can snapshot the buffs onto their bursts. If you're some artifact rolling god and have some perfect Gilded Dreams pieces once 3.0 drops, then be my guest to try it out on Beidou and Xiangling. But for most players, it's much more efficient to farm the 4-set ESF domain. Chances are it's easier for you to get decent emblem pieces versus god tier gilded pieces. The other batch of characters to touch upon are the Anemo drivers like Kazuha, Sucrose, and Heijo. I'm pretty sure you guys already know what I'm going to say here. I sound like a broken record, but the 4-set Viridescent Vanera is just way too valuable to pass up. EM for Anemo units is definitely cool, but nothing is ever going to beat Resistant Shred because it's such a safe option to farm for Anemo characters, and it's one of the most potent debuffs in the game. And last but not least, we have our very first Dendro characters. To summarize things quickly, I think Tighnari will like Gilded Dreams a little better than the Dendro set Deepwood Memories, while Collei would like the Deepwood Memories a little better than Gilded Dreams. Without the characters in-game yet, nothing else can be said for sure, but the reason why I think this may be the case is because of the way Dendro reactions work. Collei is such a great character to use the 4-set Deepwood Memories because she's a support character. Decreasing the Dendro resistance of enemies off-field not only buffs her own damage, but also any Dendro damage that your other characters deal with reactions such as Bloom, Hyper Bloom, or Spread. In that sense, you're not just buffing Dendro characters, but also other characters in Dendro-related team comps. Meanwhile, a main DPS and/or burst DPS playstyle with Tighnari can focus on bolstering his own damage by stacking lots of EM and attack with the 4-set Gilded Dreams, and a lot of crit through weapon and artifact stats. Besides that, that's all I have time for today. The Sumeru trailer was super hype, and I'm beyond excited to play Collei. Let me know your first impressions on Sumeru and which 3.0 character you're excited to play the most down in the comments below. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but as always, if you enjoyed this discussion video or learned something new, be sure to support both the video and the channel. You can follow me on Twitch or sub to the YouTube channel, whatever people do nowadays. Other than that, it's the same as always. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.